What a week it's been, right? I mean, what a week it's been. I mean, if you're paying any kind of attention to what's going on politically, your head has to be spinning like Linda Blair in The Exorcist, just around and around and around. It's mind-boggling what we're hearing, mind-boggling what we're seeing, and at times often confusing. And when times get confusing, we look to the soothsayers. We look to the rabbis. We look to the priests that can help us in these difficult times. And that's why when things get out of hand and crazy and a little difficult to understand politically, we turn to someone as astute as Dr. Nathaniel Cogley, who is the guy at Tarleton State University and just happens to be standing by on the AcuteHearingCenters.com hotline. And Dr. Cogley, how are you on this glorious Saturday?
I'm doing good. I'm visiting Savannah, Georgia, and I always love your very kind introductions, Ken.
You know, thank you, Doctor. Savannah, Georgia is one of the nicest cities in the world. It has an old town feel, and I think it's battled back from some of the things that's plagued it maybe 40, 50 years ago, and it's a great place to visit. I was stunned at how pretty that town is.
Yeah, I got a river view, and I see these big boats coming up, and I've had a nice visit here.
Well, good. Let's talk about a couple of things. Maybe you saw the debate last night. Maybe you didn't. I watched for about an hour or so before I just became bored and turned it off. But I'm looking at all of these candidates up there that want to replace Donald Trump, and I look at what I think must be the central issue in this country or in this election, and that would be health care. And I heard nothing but one guy's plan was more expensive than the other woman's plan, and her plan wasn't as good as my plan. And it just seemed like it was a circle firing squad on an issue that was on the front page of USA Today on Friday. I still don't know whose health care plan is what and how much it's going to cost. Do you?
Well, they differ on whether it's Medicare for all or Medicare for all who want it. In other words, would Americans still be able to keep private coverage or not, or they're all forced into this Medicare plan? Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren are definitely more into the everyone on the government plan. Budaj Edge and Biden are suggesting people can keep their free market alternative or employer-based alternative. So there is some differences there in terms of the extreme they want to go and how quickly they want to go there on health care insurance.
I look at Budaj Edge as the shiny new object, and frankly, even though some people say that he did well last night, I thought he was not pinned down at all by the moderators. I thought their questioning was just wasn't strong. There were no follow-up questions on anything. But is Budaj Edge the shiny new object, or has he just not been tested yet, in your opinion?
I mean, that's a good way to describe him, shiny new object. He's relatively young, but he's also a pretty good retail politician. He's pretty smooth in debates. You know, how do we select our nominees? Is it the best debater on the stage, or is there a more deeper resume that we're interested in? He's shined well in the debates. He's pretty good at rhetoric, you know, nice, fancy, colorful language about generations and values and things that sound good but aren't really policy tangible. He's someone to take seriously now. He's been getting a lot of donations. He was top 2 in Iowa. We're still not clear who won Iowa, but it's all very close out there. And he's now experiencing a surge in New Hampshire. I just wouldn't predict him to still be the nominee, but he has a campaign that needs to be taken seriously at this point.
I'm looking on Tuesday as Sanders, Budaj Edge 1-2, maybe Warren sneaking in at 3, but a distant third, Biden 4. Klobuchar had, I thought, a decent night last night, but she's not polling well in New Hampshire. Who's done after Tuesday night? Are any of these candidates done after Tuesday night, in your opinion?
Well, they may be done in the sense that it's just going to be a matter of time. Now, what actual day do they decide to hang it up? Warren has had a very impressive campaign in terms of what she's been able to raise, and she even led the pack for a while. But if she can't win a state, it's going to be hard for her to continue. So, New Hampshire is very interesting because it borders both Vermont and Massachusetts, so it's definitely a state that both Sanders and Warren want. They also compete for the same voters. But if she comes in third place in New Hampshire, like you mentioned, which I think is a very real possibility, it's going to be hard for her to keep going. She also has Oklahoma roots. That's a Super Tuesday state. But now she's picking pretty small here to suggest she's a viable candidate. And Joe Biden, I mean, the wheels are falling off. This guy, was presented as the heir apparent to the nomination, but I never was solid behind his campaign. And fourth was dismal in Iowa. He's polling poorly in New Hampshire. One would think he'd have a good shot at South Carolina, but the press out there is not good. His debate performances are not good. So it's a question of timing. When might the Biden campaign finally, call it quits?
I don't know why anybody would be surprised by this, though. Joe Biden in a national election has been it's been a taste that the American public has never gravitated toward. I mean, he ran with Obama. I think Obama wanted somebody who could operate through the halls of Congress and somebody who was likable. And I mean, Biden is a lot of that. But if you look at just his performances when he has run for this office, it has not been good. It's been a pretty short campaign every time. Why should we be surprised that it might be that now?
Well, I'm not surprised at all. You can go back. I think we did radio back in March, Ken, and we talked about this, and I said, I don't believe in the Biden campaign. He's run for president twice before, once had to drop out when allegations about plagiarism racked his campaign. 2008, he got 1% in the Iowa caucuses and then dropped out. Obama could have picked a lot of people to be vice president. He happened to pick Joe Biden for whatever reasons, and then he becomes a two-term vice president. But because of his difficulty in communicating, his common gaps, he's very much over the hill, and he's never been a good presidential campaigner. People who assumed he was a nominee were making a big assumption there.
This is all anecdotal. I don't have really any evidence to base this on, and I don't think anybody will, maybe not for a while. I think he was collateral damage in this impeachment trial because it was obvious that the Republicans are and still are very intent in getting him or his son or both in front of them in some way, shape, or form, particularly in the Senate. I think that might have just sullied him just enough to be where he is right now. I think some of it was just him, but I think a lot of that may just be collateral damage from the impeachment trial. What do you think?
Well, I think you're very much correct. I think there's a lot of things when you dig into Biden's career that will raise concerns among people. Before his sons, you could look at his brothers. You also have his behavior in the 2015 Senate impeachment the 2000 Senate swearing-in ceremony, which is disturbing video. But the tension on Hunter Biden and why Hunter Biden was making so much money in Ukraine, that's come up in these small town hall segments that he's been doing. The voters in the Democratic caucuses and the primaries have been asking him, why was your son making so much money? And his response has been very weak. He said, no one has ever said my son's done anything wrong. I mean, people are saying that, so he's just been in total denial about this. He hasn't effectively addressed it. And I think he told one reporter, look, my son's very smart. Like that justifies an $80,000 a month board position in Ukraine where you don't even need to go to Ukraine.
Yeah.
There's lots of stuff, and I think you're right. The attention in the impeachment trial has hurt his campaign. Chatting
with Dr. Nathaniel Cogley, taking time out of his day in Georgia to join us. He's with Tarleton State University. Obviously, the impeachment trial consumed a lot of us right up through Thursday afternoon. The president was acquitted. I don't think there was anything that was any kind of a doubt that would happen just because of the way the voting is and those kinds of things. It would be kind of ludicrous to think that 20 Republicans were going to jump to the other side and vote in favor of impeachment. But one Republican did on the one of the articles of impeachment, which was abuse of power, and that Republican is Mitt Romney, who is roundly being castigated by Republicans all across the country. He went against the polling in his state, which was overwhelmingly in favor of acquittal. He went against his party. I'm just wondering, he comes from Utah, which bleeds red. He has that office until 2024. But I think the guy's done in the Republican Party. I can't foresee any kind of comeback from him, particularly if the president is reelected, and particularly if the Senate holds, the Republicans hold the Senate. He will be marginalized by Mitch McConnell. I think this guy's done, don't you?
Well, I would slightly disagree. I mean, I think his vote didn't make sense. I think his statement, his speech didn't make sense. He was saying, the president's team didn't prove that the Bidens had committed a crime, and therefore they did nothing wrong. I mean, that was not the point of the trial. The president had suspicions, and Pam Bondi gave a nice 30-minute presentation showing how the UK Office of Fraud was suspicious. Obama's own State Department saw the conflict of interest. George Kent's testimony raised the internal concerns that Obama's State Department had. So the vote didn't make much sense to me. But going forward, Ken, right now Republicans have 53 senators, and we're up for a third of them up for election. My best prediction is that's going to tighten. The Democrats will probably net 2 seats coming up. The Republicans are going to have 51 senators. And with only 51 senators, you need every vote you can get. And when they're trying to confirm judges, Romney's sitting there as a Republican senator from Utah for another 4 years. They're going to need his vote. So I think for these next 4 years, at least especially 2 until we can recalculate the Senate after the next midterms come up, but for the next two especially, his vote's going to be critical in the Senate. They're going to need it. But I would say, come 2024, he's going to be up for re-election. He'll be 77. It's a good time to retire. But if he tries to run for re-election in Utah in 2024, he'll have difficulty winning the Republican primary in Utah in 2024.
So you see a net 2 for the Democrats in the Senate in 2020. What 2 seats are the most vulnerable?
Well, first of all, the Republicans should pick up a seat in Alabama. That's Doug Jones' seat. That's one of the biggest Trump states in the country. So I see the Republicans picking up one. But, Cory Gardner in Colorado has a very difficult job defending himself. Colorado has been trending Democrat. Former Governor John Hickenlooper is running against him. That's a very difficult one. Arizona, Martha McSally, she was appointed as interim to fill in John McCain's seat. Mark Kelly, former astronaut, husband of Giffords, former Representative Giffords, is there. That's a tough seat for them. Also, the more I dug into this, some people are worried about Susan Collins, but she's won that seat by 30 points before. She's pretty experienced at winning Maine. The one I worry about is Tom Tillis in North Carolina. The last time he won that in 2014, which was a great year for Republicans, he only won it by 1.5%. And so that's another seat that the Democrats will definitely be targeting. So if the Democrats are able to flip 3 seats and Republicans flip 1, that would net the Democrats 2.
Polling aside, Doctor, and just looking at this clinically, or perhaps without all of that information, is the president stronger today than what he was on Thursday, in your opinion?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, he's gone through this. He won the Senate trial. There was less than a majority. All they have is Romney's vote on one of the articles, and the whole process was so unfortunate for the country. It was very divisive for the country. It also harmed a lot of Democratic representatives in swing districts. The president hasn't gained a House since 1948, but boy, the Democrats are starting to risk that, and we need to get into the numbers of actually what the House elections look like. But Pelosi's in a better position in San Francisco.
Sure.
Democrats in very Democratic districts like that they went forward with this, like that they charged the president. But the president is looking better on the national stage. This does not play well on the national stage, and Pelosi heightening that with ripping up the State of the Union speech might have played well in San Francisco. It did not play well in moderate swing districts.
Yeah. Doctor, always great catching up with you for answers on these things. Enjoy your time down in Georgia, and we'll catch up down the road. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Ken. Appreciate it.
Dr. Nathaniel Cogley, he of Tarleton State University. My initial question, I was just waiting for an answer last night, a definitive answer on health care, and I didn't hear it. I mean, I just didn't hear it. I just saw a lot of finger pointing. Well, yours is worse than mine. Let me tell you why mine's good. No, yours isn't good. Mine's bad. And it's just, come on, man. Just tell me. And I think, and I think this socialism stuff, I don't see it playing big in the heartland of America. I really don't. But who knows? I mean, nobody knows at this point. It's cloudy, it's muddled, it's a beauty contest. Everybody knows it is. It was a beauty contest in 2016, and we'll see who wins the beauty contest and who becomes Mr. or Miss Congeniality after the primary season is over. But it looks like it's Bernie and Budaj Edge in New Hampshire on Tuesday. And that could be the slugging out that will take place as we go right through Super Tuesday coming up here. Now, what are we today? Today is the 8th. Super Tuesday is less than a month away. Coming up on 1221. Good afternoon.